Episode 333 of the Aggressive Progressive Podcast. Well, if Mamdami and Trump can have a nice meeting, we could probably all enjoy Thanksgiving, don't you think? Let's start the show.
We are now the defenders of the stronghold of democracy and of equal opportunity.
You and I, as citizens, have the obligation to shape the debates of our time, not only with the votes we cast, but with the voices we lift.
The people are looking for honest answers, not easy answers.
The very word secrecy is repugnant.
Clear leadership.
And we are, as a people,
not false claims and evasiveness and politics as usual.
opposed to secret society.
But ours was a nation of the ballot, not the bullet.
And a secret
As
proceedings.
a people, we cannot afford to let any group of citizens or any individual citizen live or labor under conditions which are injurious to the common welfare.
Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, young, old, gay, straight, men, women, folks with disabilities, all pledging allegiance under the same proud flag to this big, bold country that we love. That's what I see. That's the America I know.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
Welcome to the Aggressive Progressive Podcast. I am your host, Chris Hahn. I am at Christopher Hahn on X, Christopher Hahn NY on Instagram, and ChristopherHahn.com. Those are my socials. Thank you for liking, rating, reviewing, and subscribing to this podcast. Make sure you're telling your friends if you enjoy it, because, God, I love doing it for you, and I hope you're still enjoying it. What a week, America. I mean, Mamdami at the White House. Now Hegseth's going after Mark Kelly. Where do we start? I wasn't surprised by the Trump Mamdami meeting and how it went. In fact, I'm on the record earlier in the day on News Nation saying I thought that's how it'd go. I mean, we got two guys from Queens who are consummate politicians getting together to talk about New York City. How bad? I mean, look, I get it. They are ideologically, to some people, they seem to be on opposite ends of the spectrum. I do not believe they are. In fact, I believe that Mamdami's campaign and Trump's campaign were strikingly similar. And I believe that Trump, although he won't use the word socialism, has a lot of socialism tendencies, right? I mean, Trump RX, subsidies, bailouts. These are all socialist concepts. I know you're banging on your radio right now or your podcast device. Yeah, I get it. You think that they'd be horrible to each other, but they weren't. Mamdami needs Trump. Trump needs Mamdami. Trump is a New Yorker. I know he moved to Florida and changed his voter registration to Florida, but Trump is a New Yorker who has a lot of interest in New York, both personal interests and political interests. So for him to take a sledgehammer to New York the way he seems to have done it in other cities, I think would be unwise. Now, his bear hug of Mamdami makes it very, very difficult for conservatives across this country who probably have already started the ads where their political opponent morphs into Mamdami. It's going to be hard. Trump basically said the guy is going to be a great mayor and that he is going to help him, which is, by the way, what the president should do with all mayors, all governors, regardless of party, and all Democratic mayors and Republican mayors should be supporting and not supporting, but working with Republican governors and presidents if they exist, and vice versa, because there needs to be a difference in America between campaigning and governing. And unfortunately, the permanent campaign that has now, gripped Washington has spread to some lower levels of government, and I think we've got to walk away from that. Governments that work are governments that, campaign, and when the campaign's over, people get to work. And they work with people across party lines. And there are lots of examples of that still happening in the United States of America, but there's very little of that in Washington, D.C., where members of Congress are in a constant campaign cycle, and they will continue to be in a constant campaign cycle until we break this spell in this country that politics needs to matter more than governing. And again, that's on us, America. That's on us, the voters, who demand zero compromise from our elected officials, that they don't work with the other side, and that they are constantly looking to score points. And you might say, no, I don't believe that. But the reward system in today's politics definitely rewards that kind of behavior. It rewards demonizing the other side, even when you need the other side to be successful in whatever office you just won. And I think Donald Trump, particularly starting a year from now, is going to realize he needs the other side. Now, he may have realized that already. Donald Trump could read a poll, America. Donald Trump is not an idiot. And I know I come on here, I'm very critical of Donald Trump. I do not think he's stupid. Politically, he is very smart and astute. He, saw the affordability issue a year and a half ago and seized on it and got elected because of it. Donald Trump's poll numbers have been sagging dramatically over the last month. And I think Donald Trump said, you know what? People think I'm crazy, right? This whole thing with calling the reporter piggy and sitting there with MBS in the Oval Office. Lots of things that he's been saying and doing. And again, if you're a conservative and you're listening to me, I get it. You don't think he's crazy, but the numbers he lost were in the middle, right? The vast middle has abandoned him because they think he's crazy. Trust me, that's what they think. They think that he's crazy. And you know what he had to do? Show that he could work across party lines. So I would think that Friday was one of Trump's best days in weeks, really in weeks, since, God, at least 3 or 4 weeks. And I think he looked human. I think he looked sane. I think he looked like a leader who said, look, this is a country that I lead. This is part of my country. I don't agree with everything Mamdami does, but there are a lot of things I agree with him on. And he's going to surprise a lot of people. I think that Elise Stefanik was probably the most surprised person from that. Maybe some others in the RCCC, the Republican Congressional Campaign Committee. Listen to this. I'll be right back. Welcome back. I am your host, Chris Hahn. I am at Christopher Hahn on X, Christopher Hahn NY on Instagram, and ChristopherHahn.com. Those are my socials. Thank you for liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, and telling your friends about our podcast. If you are listening to it on the Aggressive Progressive podcast, which is available wherever you get your podcast. I know a lot of you are listening to me on the radio. Sorry. And if you're on the podcast right now, make sure you click subscribe and share. And if you're not listening to me there, please do it. And, of course, watch me on News Nation. I'm going to be on there a lot. Of course, Thanksgiving is Thursday, so I don't know how much I'm going to be on. I'm going to be cooking for 20 people, as I do every year. Really enjoy that. So, and I hope you are planning some downtime this week. You know who's planning some downtime in the real near future? Marjorie Taylor Greene. Friday night, Marjorie Taylor Greene announced that she will be no longer a member of Congress sometime in January. She plans to resign sometime in January. Look, I get that there's rifts in MAGA. We've been talking about it here on this program for a couple of weeks right now. And I know that Marjorie Taylor Greene came to politics late in life. And I would even say rose to prominence accidentally, right? She caught fire. And again, in politics, lightning sometimes strikes. And lightning, without a doubt, struck Marjorie Taylor Greene. She got elected to Congress, rose to prominence pretty quickly within the MAGA movement. Probably as much because the left wanted to push against her as the right loved her. There was both of that. Over the last few weeks, she has been an ardent supporter of the release of the Epstein files. She got into it with President Trump over that matter. And Donald Trump has basically abandoned her, said, she's called her a traitor. And she started receiving death threats and other things of that nature. And she decided that she's done. She's out. She'll leave, 2 days after she gets her pension, because you get a pension after 5 years in Congress. So she's out. She's not going to be a member of the House of Representatives. She says she has no plans to run for president of the United States. And I believe that. She has no plans to run for governor, and that she is going to go back to being a normal person, which, by the way, I think members of Congress should serve 2 or 3 terms and go back to being normal people. And I think that's what the founders wanted. I think this permanent elected class we have in Washington and in capitals across this country is not good, right? And I think it entrenches the parties, and it doesn't give enough power to the people. Now, because a House seat is unreasonably large, we have not expanded the House of Representatives in over 100 years. The population of this country has more than doubled in that time, yet we have the same amount of members of the House of Representatives. We should have about 200 more, maybe even more. We should probably have doubled the size of the House of Representatives in the last 100 years. But, that's taboo. You want more government? No, I don't want more government. I want the people. I want the representatives who are supposed to be closest to the people to actually be closest to the people, right? I want members of the House of Representatives to be known within their communities that they represent. And I want them to be accountable to those people. And right now, when you represent 800 to 900,000 people, first of all, you need to raise millions of dollars to reach them during a campaign. So that dominates your time. And more importantly, you're in such a big district that no one area of the district matters all that much. I got to tell you, I think it's a shame that we haven't expanded the size of the House of Representatives. I think we should probably double it. I think, quite frankly, a congressional district should be a third of what it is. And they should be accountable to the people. And you're like, oh, Chris, it's going to cost so much. It's not going to cost as much as all of the outsized influence money has right now over members of the House of Representatives. So just keep that in mind, right? I mean, money is an important factor in how they get elected, and it has an outsized influence because of the size of their district. It becomes more important. If you cut that district by a third, it becomes less important. And then things that you're like, why is that happening? Don't happen anymore. You always wonder why big business always wins in this country. You always wonder why big money always wins in this country. It's because members of the House of Representatives who run every 2 years need millions of dollars to campaign. And some of them get it in $5 donations from everyday individuals, people like AOC, and, I'm sure Marjorie Taylor Greene was getting it from everyday people. But most of them have to sit on the phone for hours a day, asking people for money. And who do you ask for money? You don't ask, the regular guy working a regular job. You're asking the ultra rich. So you really want to change this country? We need to make the House of Representatives bigger. I think of all the things that we talk about all the time about how to make government more responsive, smaller districts for House members is probably the one that actually can get done and needs to get done. I mean, I would at least pass the Wyoming rule, right? The state of Wyoming has 450 to 470,000 people, and they have a member of the House of Representatives. So basically, the state of Wyoming has half as many people as you would need for a House of Representatives district. Why wouldn't we want every member to represent at least that many people? So let's put the Wyoming rule in effect. At least it's a good start. And that would add, would add some seats. It would add some seats to the House of Representatives. Mr. Kelly, welcome to the big league. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. President, I should say. If I was Mark Kelly, I would look at what the president is trying to do to him as a golden opportunity to become a front runner in the Democratic primary for 2028. And I got to tell you, you're picking the wrong guy. First of all, Pete Hegseth, the, quote, Secretary of War, unquote, Donald Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize, is coming after Senator Mark Kelly because he made a 30-second ad encouraging members of the military, or reminding members of the military, I should say, that they are not to obey illegal orders. Like if the president orders the military into U.S. streets and orders them to fire upon Americans, which the president at one point during his first term suggested, and his former Secretary of, quote, Defense, which is what we should be calling it, right? Pushed back. I don't think the current Secretary of War is strong enough to do that, right? We have perhaps the weakest person in that role that we have ever had in the history of this country. The most underqualified, weakest human being who is only there to look good on camera, to troll Democrats when he does interviews, and to do whatever Donald Trump tells him to do, right? There'll be no, this is not a man who is going to tell the president the truth he doesn't want to hear. And this is, again, I've said this before on this broadcast, and I'll say it again. One of Donald Trump's biggest problems, and why his numbers will continue to fall, is because he doesn't have staff or cabinet members around him that are willing to tell him the truth. It is just that simple. I mean, when you are an aide to a powerful person, your job is to tell that person the truth so that they can make good decisions on behalf of their constituents and on behalf of their own careers, right? Donald Trump's poll numbers are sinking, yet he goes on television and says, the economy's great. How is that different than Joe Biden? Somebody tell me. I get it. You might have some data that suggests the economy's doing well comparatively, but the American people don't feel it. And that's what matters most. And nobody around him wants to tell him that. Nobody around him wants to say, Mr. President, stop saying the economy is doing great. The American people don't see it. You could tell that the vice president might have some people around him that are telling him the truth still. Or maybe he's seeing the truth for himself because he's not living in as tight a bubble as the president is. The vice president last week said, yeah, we've done a lot of things, but there's still a lot of work to be done for the American people on the economy. That's the right thing to say. It's not what the president's saying. So he's got a Secretary of War who's going after a U.S. senator who happens to be a retired military officer, a captain, using the Uniform Code of Military Justice and threatening to reactivate him for the purpose of being court-martialed. I'm just saying that is some totalitarian stuff right there. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, the one that he wants to use against Mark Kelly, states clearly that members of the armed forces are not to follow illegal orders. Now, I get it. In Trump land, they believe that anything the president says, by the fact that he said it, is legal. But that is not the case. I mean, there's a movie out right now called Nuremberg. What were the Germans? And again, I'm not comparing Trump to the Nazis in Germany. But the Nazis after World War II said we were just following orders. We were just following orders. That is not good enough. There is the Uniform Code of Military Justice states, and it is in their oath, that they will not follow illegal orders. And they do that for a reason. Because in this country, we are a nation of laws, not a nation of men. Right? We do not pledge allegiance to the President of the United States. We pledge allegiance to the Constitution, to the Republic. They swear an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, not the President. But I'm telling you right now, they're doing Mark Kelly a favor, and they're going to elevate his profile where he will be competing with Gavin Newsom as the front runner. Listen to this. I'll be right back. Welcome back. I am your host, Chris Hahn. I'm at Christopher Hahn on X, Christopher Hahn NY on Instagram, and ChristopherHahn.com. Those are my socials. Thank you for liking, reading, reviewing, subscribing, and telling your friends about my podcast, the Aggressive Progressive Podcast, which is available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure you tell your friends about it and hit like and subscribe and all that other stuff. And watch me on News Nation. I'll be on there a lot. Although it is Thanksgiving week, so I don't know. I mean, I'm cutting back. I know. I hope you're cutting back too. I mean, this is a week where we should be thankful, right? And I got to tell you, I'm feeling more hopeful at the end of the year than I did at the beginning of the year. And it's not just because of the election results 3 weeks ago. It's because, I think perhaps, from time to time, we overreact. And I said it when Trump first took office, and I'm going to repeat it to you right now. We can't overreact to every single thing Trump does. Every single thing he does, we can't treat it like it's the end of the world. And I think that I held to that for the first couple of weeks of the Trump presidency. And then, by March, I was jumping through hoops every time he asked me to jump through a hoop, right? And I was losing my mind over everything. And then sometime around September, I realized that, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Maybe we should just relax and we should see how things play out. And we should understand that, I think democracy is not as fragile as some people out there are suggesting it is. And I think that you saw that couple of weeks ago in the elections. I think you're seeing that as you're starting to see Republicans defect from Trump on key votes. And I think you're going to see more and more and more of that with every passing day, because with every passing day, we get closer and closer to Republicans announcing their intentions to run in 2028. And while the word lame duck has been used a lot since, beginning of November about Donald Trump, once there are active candidates campaigning for president in 2028, that word will be thrown about every minute of every day. Now, Donald Trump is not a traditional person. He is not, he does not subject himself to the traditions of American democracy. So there is, without a doubt, a lot of danger in him being a lame duck. But again, once he's a lame duck, it's like, like when you were a kid and you thought there was a ghost in your closet. And at some point, you realized that noise in the closet wasn't a ghost and it couldn't scare you anymore. It didn't do anything to you anymore. There's going to be a point in time when we won't need to be worried about him anymore. Right. And there'll be a point in time when Republicans who are so concerned about him, leading a primary fight against them won't be concerned about that anymore. And I think as you see his popularity wane, and it is waning, America. I mean, I know some of you are conservatives listening to me right now and you don't want to hear it. It's waning. He's cratering among independents. He's cratering among groups that helped propel him to victory in 2024, like Latinos and young people, where they made great strides. Those numbers have disappeared. They have reversed. So the lower those poll numbers go, the harder it's going to be for him to exert power and influence over congressional Republicans. And that will encourage congressional Republicans to maybe, and again, this is a wish list, right? Take back some power from him. Now, I have been suggesting that the Republicans could lose the majority in the House of Representatives before the 2026 election. You got Marjorie Taylor Greene resigning in January, and there'll be about 3, maybe even 6 months before there is a replacement picked in that seat. That makes their majority about 3 seats. There are rumors that there are other Republicans considering resigning before the end of the term, making it an even smaller majority. Now, the rumor is that these Republicans are disgusted by Mike Johnson and the way he behaved in defending Donald Trump during this Epstein matter. It was clear to Mike Johnson that a majority or a vast majority of the members of his own conference wanted to see that bill come to the floor. And Mike Johnson did everything he can to delay it. He delayed it in the summer by sending them home early in July for their recess. And then he delayed it again when a Democrat was elected in a special election. He did not seat that person for 40 days. Kept the Republicans out, kept them out of town for 2 months during the government shutdown. And there are a lot of members in his own party that are disgusted by that. And they should be disgusted by that. So, do not be surprised if there are some people who retire rather than stick around for Mike Johnson to keep Mike Johnson in power. I think Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has done tremendous damage to his conference. Now, they know, a lot of these people know that the end is near, right? They know that, a year from now, the Democrats will be gearing up to take over the majority in the House of Representatives. And they're saying to themselves, why did we waste 8 weeks of our majority where we could have been working on our agenda, staying out because Mike Johnson wanted to protect Donald Trump? And they are incredibly irate over this. So again, America, as I've been saying, I still think there's a lot to look forward to in 2026, even before the midterm elections. Because I think the incompetence of the Republican Party in both the White House and in Congress is going to lead to a lot of change in this country. And let me tell you, it can't come soon enough. I think that the damage that's being done can be permanent if it is not checked soon. And I do think there are Republicans in the House and the Senate that are looking forward to being a check and a balance on this president. They are looking forward to it. They want to do it. They want to get in there and they want to exercise their right as a co-equal branch to provide meaningful oversight to the president. They've got an incompetent person leading the Department of Defense, which they now call the Department of War for some weird reason, at an expense of $2 billion to the taxpayers, I might add. They got a maniac leading Health and Human Services, a maniac, America, a man whose own cousin is calling him out for his policies. Not because they think he's crazy, because his policies, and his policies are crazy, right? His anti-vaxxer policies. They got a woman leading the Department of Homeland Security who they do not believe will show up to a hearing for their oversight. And I think that there are some members of the House of Representatives that would like to see her come and talk about what happened in Texas on the FEMA side. And they'd like to hear from her about the ICE operations happening in cities in their states now. I mean, whose bright idea was it to deploy ICE in North Carolina, a purple state? I get it. North Carolina is gerrymandered so that Democrats won't win the House there. They won't win the state legislature there. But damn, they hold a lot of statewide offices in North Carolina. And there is a very competitive United States Senate race about to occur in that state. Meanwhile, you've got tanks in the streets in a state with a pretty large Latino population that swung for Trump in the last election. You think they're going to stay there? I'm telling you, they're not. And thanks for the reminder, Secretary Noem. You're going to make Roy Cooper a U.S. Senator. It's fantastic. I encourage you to keep doing it. But I am hopeful, man. I am hopeful for 2026. You might have heard it in my tone the last couple of weeks. I am getting more and more hopeful by the day. And again, I am not one of those people who've always been doom and gloom. I'm not. I do not think Donald Trump is going to destroy this country permanently. I think that he's going to make it very hard for the next president and going to give the next president a lot of work to do to repair the damage that he's doing around the world. I mean, look at what's going on with this Ukraine negotiation. And again, I hope that it's salvaged in a way that Europe and Ukraine can feel safe from Russia. But I'm not sure that it will be, right? I mean, the president goes back and forth. I mean, the plan that he gave, and by the way, gave a deadline of this Thursday, Thanksgiving, was a plan that Putin would have drawn up at the beginning of the war. And there's no punishment for Russia. They go back to being a part of the G8. Why? Their economy is in shambles. They're not one of the 8 largest economies in the world. It's a ridiculous thing. And Ukraine has to lower the size of their military, reduce the size of their military. They've got to give up territory that they hold still. Why would they agree to that? And they can't join NATO. Look, a lot of damage that has to be repaired, but I'm hopeful that the spell that Donald Trump has had on, reasonable conservatives in this country is about to break. And we should all be thankful for that as we get into Thanksgiving. I mean, and I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. I hope you spend some time with your family. I hope that the lesson of Trump and Mamdami's beautiful meeting last week carries over to you at your Thanksgiving table this year, where you're not going to have robust fights with your friends and family that are around the table who might disagree with you. Look, I'm going to spend Thanksgiving with a lot of people who don't share my politics. I do it every year, and I love them, and I'm thankful for them. And I will enjoy the holiday with them, and I hope you can do the same with those around you. So, happy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much. And I'm going to remind you now, as I always do, to seek the truth. Question everyone and everything, even me. Seek the truth, America. I know it's out there, and I know you'll find it if you look for it. And I'll be back here again real soon to tell you the truth as I see it. I'm Chris Hahn. Thanks for joining me on the Aggressive Progressive Podcast.